this review, we're going to start with classifying some things. You do need to know this chart, okay? You need to know in the notes at the top of 5.3 where we put all the different like monomial, binomial, trinomial, linear, constant, all of those terms. You need to know those. So look that over today so that come quiz you can fill in those blanks. This covers some of them. This doesn't cover every single one, right? So just go back to that chart and check it out. When you write something in standard form, what do you got to do? Exponents in what order? Descending order, right? So the biggest one's first. Okay, so if I take this information and I put it into standard form, what comes first? 2x cubed, that's my biggest exponent. Okay, so we're done with that one. This is going to be a positive 3x squared, so plus 3x squared, and then minus 5x. Okay, so that's your standard form. What is the degree of that polynomial? It's 3. It's always your biggest one, okay? Don't add them together. It is not 6. It is 3. It's your biggest exponent. So that's a degree of 3. Okay, so if we're going to classify it by degree and by number of terms, by degree here, a degree of 3 is called a what? Trinomial is the number of terms. This is a trinomial, right? It's 3 terms, so a trinomial. But degree is something to the third power. We say we cubed it, right? This is a cubic. Okay, so that is a cubic trinomial. All right, take a second and try to put number 2 into standard form for me. For your standard form, 3x, right? It simplifies down to just 3x. If you look at it, this is subtraction. Please don't FOIL that. Right? We're subtracting between the binomials, so make sure you're subtracting your like terms. So this would be 4x, 4x squared minus 4x squared, right? So that's 0. That goes away. And then you have 5x minus 2x. Okay, so 5x minus 2x is 3x, so that's standard form. What's your degree? 1. It's x to the first power. What's the degree of the number 16? 0, right? Any whole number, integer, something that does not have a variable is a degree of 0, okay? Do you remember what you call a degree of 0? It's a monomial. What's the one by degree, classifying by degree? Starts with a C. Constant. Okay, so this would be a constant monomial. Okay, this one is 3x is a linear, right? If we were to graph y equals 3x, it makes a straight line. So that's linear when it's a degree of 1. And it is a monomial, one term. All right, look at this next one. We have to do a little distributing. So 2x squared plus 8x plus 3x squared minus 3x, but we can still simplify from there. So 2x squared plus 3x squared is 5x squared. 8x minus 3x is a positive 5x. What's your degree? The degree is 2, your biggest exponent, right? So a degree of 2. Do you remember what we call it by degree because of this guy? That's a quadratic, right? The quadratic is, think parabola. A quadratic is a parabola. Whenever there's an x squared in there, it's a parabola. So this is a quadratic. And then 2 terms is a binomial. Okay, I highly, highly recommend you look over that chart that we did in the notes, okay? Look that over, make sure you've got it. Okay, for 4 through 7, We're going to completely factor it, but I'm not going to graph it yet. I'll come back to that part so that I don't have to jump back and forth. But if you want to try to do that on your calculator as we're going, that's fine too. But let's just factor first, okay? If I were to factor this, what do I get? What can I factor out of 3x cubed minus 6x squared minus 9x? You can factor out an x and a 3, right? So we're going to factor out a 3x, and we're left with x squared minus 2x minus 3. Are you done? Can you factor any further? We can try, right? We would do star method. So if we set up our star, don't forget about our friend out in front. We have a negative 3 on top and a negative 2 on bottom. Okay. What can you multiply to get a negative 3 that you can add to get a negative 2? Say it again. Negative 3, positive 1. Okay, so read the directions. It says completely factor into linear factors, right? Linear factors would be something that if I were to graph it, it makes a line. So 3x would be 1. What's your next one going to be? X minus 3. Okay, and then the last one? X plus 1. Okay, that's your answer for this. Completely factor into linear factors. That's it. Now, if it said solve, that's a different question. If you solve, what do you do? Not FOIL. You set each piece equal to 0, right? You're finding your zeros if you solve. So your zeros, if we were to say, if they said solve this, you would say my zeros are 0, 3, and negative 1. Okay, but that's not what they asked you for here. But I just want you to see the difference. If it says factor it, you do this. If it says solve by factoring, you give me the zeros. Okay?
Why are the zeros for negative 3 the opposite? So 3 and 8.
Because we're saying if this, because really it's saying the whole thing is equal to 0, right? So in order for the whole thing to equal 0, either this has to equal 0, or this has to equal 0, or this has to equal 0, so that when we multiply by 0, we get 0 as our answer, right? So it's always opposite of what you see here because x minus 3 has to equal 0, so we have to add 3. So x would have to equal 3, right? Because 3 times 0, right? 3 times x, so 3 times 0 would get you 0. Okay, so we'll sketch that and do the max and min in a little bit. This one is, so number 8, a little bit backwards, right? Given the following zeros, negative 1, negative 4, and 2, you're going to write a polynomial in factored form and then in standard form. Factored form is going to look like what we just did up here, right? This is the factored form. Standard form is going to look more like this. Okay, so how do we do this in factored form? If our zeros are negative 1, negative 4, and 2. There's your hint. What is the negative 1 going to get us?
1.
X plus 1, right? Factored form would be the binomial x plus 1. What is the negative 4 going to get us? X plus 4, okay, and then the last one, x minus 2, okay? So this is your factored form, right? You have your linear factors. That's x plus 1, x plus 4, x minus 2. How do you turn that into standard form? FOIL what?
Just make them all line.
2 of them, right? Let's just ignore that last one for now. We'll FOIL the first 2. So if we FOIL this, we get x squared plus 4x plus 1x plus 4. Okay, now simplify that a little bit. You get x squared plus 5x plus 4. So we get a trinomial when we FOIL our two binomials, right? We still have to multiply that by this other binomial. So we're going to bring that down, x minus 2. So with that, now it's like we're foiling. Essentially, you have to multiply everything by everything else, right? So there's a couple ways you can look at it. I would probably just take the binomial and multiply both parts of the binomial by everything. So I would go x times x squared, and then x times 5x, and then x times 4. So I would get x cubed plus what? 5x squared plus the x times the 4 here would be 4x. What do I do next? The negative 2 times everything. So negative 2 times 2x is a negative, 2x squared. Negative 2 times 5x is a negative 10x. And negative 2 times 4 is a negative 8. Okay, so we're getting close. You know what, technically we don't need this to equal 0 right now. We're just writing a polynomial. So we'll set it equal to y. So now from here, we're gonna say standard form, y equals, what's gonna come first? X cubed, right? This is our first one, y equals x cubed. I don't think it's a terrible idea to scratch things off as you use them so you make sure you didn't forget something or leave something out or put something in a weird place. What would you get next? 3x squared, right? You have 5x squared minus 2x squared. So that's a positive 3x squared. What comes after that? Minus 6x. 4x minus 10x is a negative 6x. And then your last thing, minus 8. So this would be your standard form. And I'm not picky about the y equals or 0 equals, or like you could just do it without any of that and I would call it good. That'd be just fine. All right, then you come to one like this. List the zeros and their multiplicity. What do you get here? Right, this is 0, right? The answer would be 0, but there are 3 of them. So there's 0 with a multiplicity of 3. What do you get for the next one? What's the 0 here? That would be a negative 2 with a multiplicity of what? Multiplicity of 2. And then what's your last one? 4 with a multiplicity of? Not even 1. You can have multiplicity with 1, right? So just negative, or just a positive 4 is all you put for that. So 0 multiplicity of 3, negative 2 multiplicity of 2, and 4. Yes, ma'am.
So when it stands alone, we don't have to put multi?
Yeah, because if it's just one thing, right, then there isn't multiplicity. Multiplicity means we have it multiple times, right? So if it's just one number, then it's just that number.
So what if it's just like x and not like anything?
Then it would be 0. Yep, you would just say 0. Okay, number 10A, skip it. We didn't do cubics, but we did do Cortics, and this is a Cortic, right? 4th degree. Tell me about Cortics. What do? You do star method, but then write it a little differently toward the end, right? So set up your star. What can you multiply to get negative 50 that you can add to get 23? Positive 25, a negative 2. Okay, so here's where it's a little different. How do you write this? It's still going to look like this, right? That's your general setup. Still 2 binomials. But what are those binomials? Yeah, you got to do the x squared plus 25. So just keep in mind, if this is x to the 4th, then this must be x squared and x squared. Okay? So x squared plus 25, and then x squared minus 2. And now you set them both equal to 0, just like we always do, but with the x squared, it's gonna come out a little different. So x squared plus 25 equals 0, and x squared minus 2 equals 0. So let's solve that first one. Take away your 25, and you get x squared equals negative 25, and then take the square root. What is the square root of negative 25? It is 5i, right? The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of negative 1 is I. What do you have to put with it? Plus or minus. So x equals plus or minus 5i. Okay, next one. What do we do? Add 2. So x squared equals 2. Then what? Square root, both sides. So x equals plus or minus square root of 2. There's nothing you can do with that, so you just leave it as is. Okay, so just look out for, if it's x to the 4th, you should have 4 answers, right? So when you get to your final answer, if you forget the plus or minus, that's 2 answers of the 4, right? Please don't forget it. X to the 4th needs 4 answers there. All right, solve by graphing and sketch the graph here. Let's just go back up to that first one. You're not going to see any of this on my screen here. Maybe I'll write it on the board so you can see the answers at least. I just don't want to jump back and forth because it always makes my calculator go away when I do that. Get your graphing calculator out. And go to your y equals and clear out whatever's there. I'm doing number 5, 6, 7 right now, okay? So go to that y equals 3x cubed. So 3x caret 3, arrow to the right, minus 6x squared, minus 9x. Okay, you should still have y2 equal to 0 there. How do you graph it? Zoom 6. Looks like that. How many solutions do you see? 3 solutions, okay? This is where you could graph it right now. So you can see your solutions look like -1, 0, and 3. So -1, 0, and 3 as points on your graph. And then just do that general curve. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I can show you in a little bit what mine looks like if you would like to see it. Okay, relative maximum. What do you hit? Second trace 4, the number 4. So here's where you have to be a little bit careful. If we're going for the maximum, we're going for the high point. Don't try to do it on the minimum when you typed in maximum, right? So it's asking right now, are you to the left of your maximum? Is my cursor to the left of my maximum right now? No, right? So we need to move to the left. So go here. Now I'm to the left, so hit enter. Now it says, are you to the right? We're not, so we need to shift to the right. Hit enter. Okay, and then do you want me to guess? Hit enter one more time. And your maximum is -0.54, comma, 2.64. Okay, is your relative maximum. Then we do the relative minimum. And we can't see that one, but that's okay. You don't need to see it. Second trace minimum is 3. So second trace 3. And it says, are you to the left of your minimum? I'm just going to move over a little bit just so I'm focused on that bottom curve. So hit enter. And now are you to the right? So you need to move over to the right. And I would just go until you see your cursor again at some point. So that's plenty. Hit enter again. And then do you want me to guess? Hit enter one more time. Notice you can't see your cursor anymore, but that's because you can't see your minimum, right? The minimum is 1.87. And then negative 18.19. Okay. Questions on that? All right, then number 11 says solve by graphing. Did anyone solve that one yet? I don't have the answers in front of me. Not yet. Okay, so this one, clear it out. You get x cubed plus 5x squared plus 3x minus 10. How many solutions should you get here? 3. But you could also get 1 because if there are complex solutions, they come in pairs, right? So you would go zoom 6. Okay. Look what happens. How many solutions are we going to get right now? 1, even though there's 3, right? Because 2 must be complex solutions. So you're going to go second, trace, intersect 5, enter, enter, enter. And you get 1.06. Okay, there are 3 solutions. Only 1 is a real solution. The other ones are imaginaries. Any questions on that?